Okay, so I'm going to start telling random stories from my childhood on this cheap webcam. I keep losing connection, so I don't know how long I can go. Okay, so when I was a little kid, an older girl actually told me that if I were to go in the mirror at midnight and say Bloody Mary 3 times, a woman with no head would come in riding a horse, like a complete ghost of Bloody Mary, and appear to me. So and of course, like, older girls don't lie, because she actually said she had done it the previous night, and she appeared to her. So it takes me several weeks to get the courage. So I finally go in the bathroom at midnight, and I'm like, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And nothing happens. So I'm like, oh, it must have not been exactly midnight. I need to go again. Obviously, that girl's not lying to me because it happened to her. So the next night I go in there at midnight, and I'm like, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. Again, nothing happens. And I'm like, fudge. Bitch lied to me. I was so mad. I was so mad. When I was a kid, actually I wasn't mad. I was just kind of relieved, actually. But so anyways, I liked climbing on everything when I was a kid. I would climb pretty much all the trees in my yard and at every park I went to, and up walls, up poles, up everything. I was probably around 6. I decided to climb to the roof of my house. My mother just came home, and she sees me standing on the roof. And she's like, Rachel, what are you doing up there? And I'm like, Mommy, I can see the Sears Tower from here. And she's like, she like completely freaked out. This other time we went on vacation to the Wisconsin Dells. And we went on a walking tour of this place called the Lost Canyon. All of a sudden my dad looks up and he sees me on top of the canyon. I had climbed the canyon, and I'm like, hi Daddy, hi! And so anyways, I start trying to get down, and I was 8. It was the summer between 3rd grade and 4th grade. And I was going down like an overhanging cliff because I had gone up on the other end and had followed them on the top of the canyon walking. So pretty much everyone on that walking tour had to direct me on how to climb down from the canyon because I was an idiot 8-year-old. Me and my sister used to do front flips off our swing sets into the snow during the winter. We would go down the slide in a sled. We would go down the stairs in our house in sleds. People would say our whole family was weird because we would do that. My dad, we had a giant trampoline in our backyard, and we used to jump out the 2nd-story window onto the trampoline. Of course, like, you know, you occasionally would do the front flip and stuff. Was one time when I was little, like 3 or 4, I guess. My cousin was over, and we were jumping off my desk onto my bed, and he dared me to do a front flip. That's the last thing I remember. The next thing I remember is lying on the couch next to my mom and my aunt, and with blood gushing in my head, and them talking, and them discussing whether or not to take me to the hospital. Yeah, apparently I had hit my head on the corner and split it open, and blood was gushing everywhere. I've gotten stitches like over a dozen times and broken like 4 bones due to crazy, reckless things I did as a kid. I eventually learned my lesson, probably as a teenager. I haven't had a major injury since like high school, although I did get a major surgery in 2008. I had like a tumor or something in my neck, but that's a different story. When I was in kindergarten, I convinced my 4-year-old sister to jump out of the 2nd-story window. I told her that if there was a fire, she would need to be prepared, and she would need to know how to jump out of the 2nd-story window so she wouldn't burn to death. So she jumps out the 2nd-story window and lands on the picnic table and kind of gets hurt. And my mom wouldn't let me go to my kindergarten fun fair because I convinced my 4-year-old sister to jump out of a window, a 2nd-story window. And I convinced her to do a lot of other stupid things like drinking toilet water. I said, Katie, drink this. She's like, okay, we talk, because of course the big sister knows everything. I remember going to Disneyland. I got lost for over 5 hours. Actually, Disney World, I'm sorry. Let's take that. and my parents were about to call the cops or something because they thought I was kidnapped when they finally found me. And they're like, Rachel, well, we're so glad you found me. Where were you? What were you doing? I'm like, I went on Dumbo. I went on the teacups. I went on, like, all these other rides. And, they're like, you were going on rides the whole time? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we thought you were kidnapped. We thought someone had taken you. And, sorry. So, and it's what's great when you're a little kid, you don't have to wait in line. You can get on so many rides, just go, oh, my mommy's up there, and they all let you pass, because they actually believe you, because when you're like 5, 6 years old, there's no way you're going to be there by yourself. Just doing that. I like to take apart electronic devices when I was a kid. I remember in 1st grade, our teacher told us that there was a little electronic chip in all electrical devices. And I'm like, ooh, I want to see the chip. So I had gotten this electric keyboard from my cousin that played music. And we actually went to their house like 4 days a week when we were a kid because my mom had no idea what to do. At the time, she had like 4 young kids. She actually had more after that. But anyways, so I had gotten this keyboard from my cousin that played music. And I decided to take it apart to see the chip. But of course, that wasn't enough when I saw the chip. So I take it apart into every little piece that can be possibly taken apart. I organize all the screws, I organize just all the pieces around. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it back together. And of course I couldn't do that. So I had to start crying and I asked my mom and she couldn't put it back together either. So, yeah, I didn't get a new one. I took apart a bunch of stuff, like my parents' new VCR. Yeah, I grew up in the 90s. And my Nintendo that they got me. I wanted a Super Nintendo, but they got me a regular Nintendo from Funkerland because we couldn't afford the Super Nintendo. My stupid rich cousin had Super Nintendo because her parents were rich and I didn't. But anyways, that was fine. I took apart a lot of cameras and boomboxes and just basically a lot of other stuff that kids do. When I was a kid in 4th grade, I did a science project in electricity, and I made a electronic windmill that I would plug into a battery pack. I had done all the wiring stuff myself, but I wasn't very good at it. And then this kid in my class goes, "Oh, don't plug into a battery pack. Plug it into the wall. It will go faster." So I plugged the windmill into the wall, and it explodes and catches fire. Luckily, it was a small explosion, so there was like no damage, but that's pretty bad. I used to like exploring. I have 4 younger brothers and sisters, so I could pretty much get away with anything. So when I was like probably around 4, I started just wandering around my neighborhood for several hours at a time. I was like 6, I was leaving my neighborhood. When I was 12, I was going to other suburbs. When I was in high school, I was going across state lines and into like the city. I was like mainly riding my bike and running. One time I remember realizing when I could run 7 hours straight, I made my decision to do my first marathon. I was like in my early 20s then, but actually I knew I could do this. Well, anyways, it's a different story. So when I was in high school, I decided I wanted to ride my bike across state lines. I wanted to go to Wisconsin. So I just started heading straight north for some reason. I figured, just head north, you get to Wisconsin. And apparently I ran into my cousin and his girlfriend at the time when going there, and I'm like, my older cousin. And I'm like, can you please not tell my parents? And he told my parents. He told my dad, so that wasn't that. My dad's like, oh, so you made it to Wisconsin? I'm like, yep, I did. He goes, how'd you get there? I'm like, did you have a map? And I'm like, no, I just went straight north, and then I eventually ran into the border. I ride my bike across state lines a lot. I once rode my bike from New York City to Seattle, Washington, but that was in college. See, I've hitchhiked a few times. I've skydived. Try to think of another story. I think I have time for a few. Okay, actually my college stories are better, and so are some of my high school stories. It's already getting to 10 minutes. Oh yeah, like I would hate church. I would always ditch church as a kid. I have like some of my greatest stories are when I would ditch church and just wander around, especially when we were visiting my grandparents in Florida, and I got lost. That's actually how I kind of got into running. I had nothing to do when I was ditching church. Oh yeah, this one time my brother actually, because my parents actually forced me to go to church and stuff. So he tells me to yell at the sky, God, that's a completely different story. God, I don't believe in you, and I did it. And then I told my religious teacher, and he's like, did you feel guilty about that? And I'm like, no, I don't believe. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have shared that story. And this is getting long. It's already like 10 minutes. I could probably do a few more, but I've lost connection several times. Okay, bye.